The sun sank low over the marble towers of Valoria, casting a golden glow across the palace gardens. Princess Elara stood by her window, her reflection framed by silk curtains and shimmering jewels. To the court, she was every inch a royal, poised, graceful, and impossibly perfect. Yet behind those calm eyes lay a storm of secrets. For 5 years, Elara had led a double life. By day, a beloved princess. By night, the kingdom's most elusive intelligence operative, codenamed Vesper. She had been trained in silence, deception, and the art of slipping through shadows, skills no one would ever suspect of a princess adorned in pearls. Tonight, her two worlds threatened to collide. A secret message had arrived, hidden inside the petals of a white rose left on her vanity, a symbol known only to agents of the Valorian Spy Council. As she unfolded the small slip of parchment, her heartbeat quickened. The traitor walks within your walls. Trust no one. Midnight at the East Gate. Her breath caught. The last time such a message had come, it led to an assassination plot that nearly claimed her father's life. She knew this wasn't a simple warning, it was a summons, one that could unravel everything she had carefully hidden. At dinner, the grand hall glittered with chandeliers and laughter. Courtiers in silk and velvet gossiped under candlelight, oblivious to the tension curling beneath Elara's skin. Her father, King Alden, raised a toast to the upcoming treaty with the neighboring empire, while her stepbrother, Prince Lucian, smiled too easily from across the table. Elara studied him with quiet suspicion. His charm had always seemed effortless, perhaps too effortless. Every instinct whispered that he knew more about the unrest spreading through Valoria than he admitted. Yet she smiled, playing her part, the perfect princess sipping her wine while measuring every word and glance. As the clock struck 11, Elara excused herself under the pretense of fatigue. But instead of retreating to her chambers, she slipped into a hidden corridor behind her dressing room, an ancient passage that wound beneath the palace like a forgotten vein. There, her royal gown was replaced by the matte black uniform of a spy, fitted leather, a hooded cloak, and a small silver dagger engraved with her family's crest. She tied her hair back and whispered to her reflection, princess by day, ghost by night. It was a vow she had repeated countless times, each one cutting a little deeper into her heart. By midnight, the East Gate loomed ahead under a shroud of fog. A cloaked figure waited in the shadows, a contact known only as the Whisper. He handed her a sealed envelope, his voice low and tense. We have proof of a mole in the palace, and a name. Before Elara could respond, a sudden arrow sliced through the air, striking the man in the chest. He crumpled soundlessly, the envelope falling from his grasp. Elara's heart pounded as footsteps echoed nearby. She reached for the letter, only to see a gloved hand snatch it first. A masked assailant met her gaze, eyes burning with recognition. You shouldn't have come, princess, he hissed, before vanishing into the darkness.
The night air was cold against Lila's skin as she stepped out of the cottage. The moon, now half-veiled by drifting clouds, cast pale stripes of light across the dirt path that led toward the forest. The village was silent. Even the dogs that usually barked at shadows slept without stirring. Lila clutched her shawl tighter around her shoulders, shivering at the thought of her mother waking to find her gone. But the strange melody, soft and lilting, still floated in the air ahead of her, beckoning her closer to the wood's dark embrace. Paragraph 2, a trail of silver. She followed the path until the last cottage lay far behind. At the forest's edge, the trees seemed impossibly tall, their branches knitting together like dark fingers against the night sky. For a moment, Lila hesitated, her heart thudding in her chest. Then she noticed something extraordinary, a faint silver glow seeping through the roots and winding deeper into the woods, like a ribbon of moonlight spilled on the ground. It was the same glowing trail she had seen in her dream. The sight filled her with both wonder and dread, but curiosity nudged her onward. Paragraph 3. The whispering trees. The deeper Lila ventured, the thicker the mist grew, curling around her ankles like cool breath. The trees creaked softly as if sharing secrets in hushed tones. Shadows moved where there should have been none. She tried to convince herself that the sounds were only the wind, yet the whispers began to form faint words, snatches of her name, sighs that seemed to come from just behind her. Each step felt heavier than the last, but something stronger than fear urged her to keep following the silver trail. Paragraph 4. The hollow clearing. After what felt like an eternity, Lila stumbled into a clearing at the heart of the forest. The ground here was soft and damp, blanketed in moss that shimmered faintly in the moonlight. At the center of the clearing stood an enormous oak tree with a hollow so wide it could have been a doorway. From the hollow drifted the strange, melodic humming she had heard before, low and haunting, like a lullaby sung by someone unseen. The sight sent a chill down her spine, yet her feet carried her closer, as though she were no longer in control of her own movements. Paragraph 5. The voice in the hollow. Just as Lila reached the hollow's edge, the humming stopped. The sudden silence was so deep it seemed to press against her ears. She peered inside and caught a glimpse of something pale shifting within the shadows, too fleeting to tell if it was a hand or merely a trick of the light. Then a voice, low and velvet smooth, drifted from the darkness. "You've come at last." Lila's breath caught in her throat. She stumbled backward, nearly tripping on a root, torn between running for her life and leaning closer to see who, or what, had spoken.
The rain fell in silver sheets as Elara descended the palace steps, her gown soaking through with each stride. She moved swiftly through the torchlit corridors and out into the stables, where the scent of wet hay and leather filled the air. Lightning flashed, revealing a cloaked figure crouched near the royal carriage, rifling through a saddlebag. Elara crept closer, her breath shallow. The figure turned suddenly, and in the momentary blaze of light, she saw his face. It was one of the palace guards. But not just any guard, Sir Damon, Captain Rowan's second-in-command. His eyes widened with panic when he saw her, and without a word, he bolted toward the back gate. Elara chased him into the storm. Their boots splashed through puddles as thunder cracked overhead. "Stop," she shouted, her voice slicing through the rain. Damon didn't listen. He leaped over a stone fence, but she was faster. With a precise flick of her wrist, she hurled a throwing blade. It embedded into the wood beside his head, startling him enough to make him stumble. Elara caught up, grabbing his arm and twisting him to the ground. "Who sent you?" she demanded, pressing her dagger to his throat. His lips trembled, rain streaming down his cheeks. "It's too late," he rasped. "They already know you're Vesper." Before she could react, he bit down on something poison. Within seconds, his eyes glazed over, and he went limp in her hands. Heart pounding, Elara stood in the storm, the realization sinking deep. Her cover was blown. If Damon had been part of the Obsidian Order, then her enemies were closer than she had feared. She glanced down and noticed something clutched in his hand, a ring, etched with the same serpent and crown emblem. But this one bore an additional mark, a single ruby at the serpent's eye. She pocketed it, her mind racing. Someone of high rank had given him this. Only nobles carried ruby-sealed insignia. She whispered to herself, someone in the royal court. By the time dawn broke, the palace guards had found Damon's body. Elara listened as the captain of the guard announced it was an apparent act of treason, and the court murmured with confusion and fear. The king ordered tighter security, unaware that the true threat was not outside the gates, but within them. In the council chamber, Elara's gaze met her stepbrother Lucian's across the table. He smiled faintly, almost knowingly. Her pulse quickened. His cufflink caught the morning light. It was adorned with a ruby. the same deep crimson as the one on the serpent ring. She masked her shock behind a calm expression and bowed her head slightly. The web was tightening, and Lucien might be its spider. That evening, Elara returned to her secret chamber beneath the library. She laid out the ring, sketches, and coded fragments upon the table. Rowan arrived, face grim. "You think it's Lucien?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," Elara replied, "but he's involved somehow. And if I'm right, he's not working alone." Her voice hardened. "The Order's reach is deeper than we thought." Rowan hesitated before sliding a small black box across the table. "Then you'll need this." Inside lay a tiny crystal orb pulsing faintly with light, a listening device, crafted by Valoria's most skilled alchemists. "Plant it in the council room," Rowan said. "Let's hear what your brother's been hiding." Elara nodded, her eyes gleaming. The princess was done running. Now she would listen to the lies herself.
The following night arrived cloaked in a heavy silence. The kingdom's bustling courtyards had grown eerily quiet, as if the land itself sensed the shift in the skies. When Amara stepped into the garden, the usual silver glow of moonlight was gone, replaced by a deep crimson hue that bled across the pond and painted the lilies a haunting shade of scarlet. She felt the weight of her promise press harder against her heart. Every step toward the pond seemed longer, heavier, as though she were walking into the very heart of a dream that could turn nightmare. Paragraph 2. The sorceress's demand. Kalen was waiting near the center of the pond, but his form appeared even smaller beneath the oppressive red moon. "She'll be here soon," he croaked, his voice tight with dread. Amara knelt by the edge, her lantern casting a golden halo around them both. The reeds stirred though the air was still. Then the water rippled in concentric rings, and the sorceress rose again, more vivid than before, her eyes glowing like dark rubies. "Princess," she called, her voice carrying a melody that was both alluring and menacing. "You've come to fulfill your word. I require your favor now. You will give up something most precious to you, your voice, so that Kalen may regain his human form. A prince's pride for a princess's silence. Fair, isn't it?" Amara's heart pounded. Her voice, her laughter, her words, her stories, meant more to her than the crown itself. Paragraph 3. The princess's defiance. Kalen's eyes widened. "No. I can't let you take her voice. I caused the curse, let me bear the price." His protest made the sorceress smile, a thin curve of cold amusement. "You had your chance, prince. Promises were broken, debts remain. The choice belongs to the princess now." Amara stood, the lantern trembling slightly in her grip, and answered with quiet strength, "My word was to grant Kalen a favor, not to let you decide the price of it. I won't give my voice. I will give something else, something you never had, forgiveness. Forgive him, and the bond between you both will break." The sorceress's smile faltered, as if the suggestion unsettled her. Paragraph 4. The breaking of the curse. For a moment, the garden went still. Then the sorceress's laughter echoed across the pond, sharp but uncertain. "Forgiveness," she repeated, her tone wavering between mockery and something far older, grief. The red moonlight shimmered as if the pond itself was listening. Amara stepped forward, her bare feet brushing the water's edge, and said softly but firmly, "He wronged you in his ignorance, but he saved his people. Let that wound go. Free him, and free yourself." The sorceress's form flickered like a candle flame in a gust. For the first time, her eyes softened, losing some of their sharpness. Slowly, her hands, thin and pale, lowered toward the pond. With a sigh that sounded almost human, she whispered, "Very well, for the sake of what once was." The red moonlight fractured into streams of silver as her figure dissolved into the water. A bright surge of ripples raced toward Kalen, and before Amara's astonished eyes, the frog's body shimmered, stretching and reshaping until a tall young man stood knee-deep in the pond, drenched in moonlit water but free at last. Paragraph 5. A new dawn. The lilies returned to their natural white, glowing faintly beneath the silver moon as the sky shed its crimson veil. Kalen waded toward the shore, bowing his head to Amara with a voice that was now deep and warm. "You saved me without giving up anything but kindness. I owe you my life." Amara smiled faintly. A promise kept is worth more than any bargain. As dawn's first light touched the garden, Kalen knelt and cupped the pond water in his hands. She's gone, he murmured, but perhaps, in a way, she's free too. The garden felt lighter, as if the sorceress's lingering bitterness had finally been lifted with the night's tide. The two walked back to the castle in quiet companionship, leaving behind the pond that had once been a place of sorrow, now transformed into a sanctuary of peace and rebirth.
The throne hall shimmered with splendor that morning, its golden banners swaying in the faint breeze. Courtiers filled the marble aisles, their hushed conversations echoing off the vaulted ceiling. At the far end, King Alden sat tall upon his throne, weary yet dignified, the treaty scroll laid before him. Beside him stood Prince Lucien, his smile bright, his hands steady, too steady. Princess Elara entered with quiet grace, every step of her silver-clad boots echoing like a heartbeat. Beneath her gown, she concealed a miniature sound prism, connected to the orb she had planted the night before. Today, the truth would either save the kingdom or destroy her. As the herald announced the signing, Lucien leaned toward the king, speaking softly, "With this treaty, Valoria will prosper forever." Elara's eyes narrowed. The words were honey, but the intent beneath them was venom. She stepped forward. "Father," she said, voice clear and steady, "before you sign, there is something you must hear." A ripple of confusion swept through the court. Lucien's smile faltered for the first time. Elara raised the prism, and with a touch, the chamber filled with the recording's ghostly echoes. "The king signs the treaty at dawn. When he does, Valoria falls under our control." Gasps rippled through the hall. The nobles looked to Lucien, whose face drained of color. He tried to interject, but the next line sealed his fate. "And the princess? Deal with her after the coronation." The room fell into stunned silence. The king rose, fury flashing in his eyes. "Lucien," he thundered, "what treachery is this?" But Lucien's mask shattered completely, his calm replaced by cold resolve. He lunged, drawing a hidden blade from beneath his cloak. "You were never meant to rule, old man," he snarled. The guards froze, chaos erupting around them. In one swift motion, Elara intercepted him. Her training as Vesper took over, every move precise, every strike controlled. Steel clashed against steel as they fought before the throne, the clash of metal echoing like thunder. "You betrayed your blood," Elara cried, parrying his strike. Lucien sneered, "And you betrayed your crown." He lunged again, but Elara sidestepped and disarmed him, twisting the blade from his grasp. With one final blow, she drove the dagger into the marble floor beside his hand, the point inches from his throat. "No more lies," she whispered. Guards rushed forward, seizing the fallen prince as the hall erupted in shouts and disbelief. The aftermath was swift and somber. Lucien was taken away in chains, and the Obsidian Order's agents, exposed through his confession, were hunted across the realm. King Alden, shaken but proud, turned to his daughter. "You saved Valoria," he said softly. Elara bowed her head. "I only did what was necessary." Yet deep within, she knew she had given up more than victory. She had surrendered the mask that once protected her. The kingdom would remember her as the princess who unmasked betrayal, not the spy who had lurked in shadows. Still, as she gazed toward the horizon from the palace balcony that night, she smiled faintly. There would always be new secrets, new dangers, and if Valoria ever needed her again, Vesper would rise once more.